You get into a taxi. You utter the getting into a taxi greeting and you tell the driver where to go.
You're in Dublin. It rains a lot, and though it's a relatively small place, it often takes a long time to get anywhere.
You're beginning your journey, you're beginning to move, you're moving.
You feel the obligatory sense of hurry that is necessary to be in a taxi in the first place.
There's an automatic sense of panic, a sense of frustration, and not being able to simply transport yourself instantly to where you need to be.
Where you feel you need to be.
And you know you really can't afford to be in this taxi in yet another taxi, but sometimes, like today, you can't afford not to be.
Sometimes you take a taxi just because you're lonely and you need to talk to someone.
You've heard a story in a taxi that has changed your life.
Maybe not forever, but for that day at least.
Sometimes no one speaks and the radio plays on.
And sometimes you take a taxi because you need to get home before you cry.
You feel ashamed and embarrassed to be in a taxi. You're notching up miles on the clock, and you're losing time again.
You look out the window into the street you've been on a million times before, and you remember who you were last year, 10, 20 years ago, and you remember for a moment who you wanted to become.
You remember leaving them there, walking away and leaving them. And you think about the notion that you never know that when you say goodbye to someone it might actually be goodbye. For good.
You have said goodbye to someone who you've never seen again, and you wonder if there was anything that you could have added to that conversation. Rephrased, shifted the grammar around.
And you think about that for a while until your eyes go blurry in that starey, lazy sort of way, and you have to refocus. The droplets of rain on the window catch your eye.
You think about the fact that we talk about the weather a lot here. You notice that sometimes you're ashamed to say that you're glad it's raining.
That you thought your head would burst if it didn't rain.
You think it's another excuse to get the taxi in the first place.
You'd like to say, I'm glad it's raining.
But you're afraid.
You watch the perfect combination of raindrops which align themselves on the glass.
Haphazardly arrived, perfectly placed.
You wonder if raindrops are like snowflakes, each unique and infinitely changeable.
Distinct.
You realise there is no way of knowing if that's true.
You think all such facts, while fascinating, are ultimately unprovable.
Forever unknowable.
But they are nice to think, you know.
Sometimes it's nice to think, you know.
Because it makes it easier to live in the in-between moments.
The moments of uncertainty when you're travelling, but not really sure where you're going, and it's uncertain where you'll end up.
You realise you're on a street that you're not familiar with and wonder if the driver heard what you said when you got into the car. You think about saying it again, but you don't want to upset them.
You contemplate briefly the etiquette of travelling in a taxi.
That unspoken decision on both sides of whether to engage in conversation or not.
The idea of fate enters your head, and then the notion of faith, and you wonder if you can have one without the other.
You think this journey is an example of faith. Faith in the driver's ability to get you where you need to go.
Faith that you'll get there at the right time.
Faith that you're meant to get there at all.
And the idea that it could be fate that you were in this car at this particular time, with this particular driver, on this particular route.
Heading to this specific location.
And that's not always a bad thing.
And you snuggle into the seat and rest your head and close your eyes for a moment.
And breathe.
You breathe.
You breathe into the part of you that knows you're heading in the right direction and let the rest wash over you.
You let the sounds of the city sigh away.
And you have faith that you're travelling at the speed that you're meant to.
You can relax.
You're moving.
You're on the road and you'll get there. You'll get there at the right time.